again, this is Michael from the Resurrected Hobbyist, bringing you a project review video. This time I'm going to be reviewing my converted Heavy Arms model. Originally this was just going to be just a straight project brief, talking about what I did with the model, what I changed and all that. But as I was thinking about it, I decided to go digging back through my old models and find the same model that I had built about 17 years ago. And in turn this into more of a what I did then compared to what I did now scenario, and kind of show how my skills have grown and also show areas where other people grow as well. So before I talk about the conversion I did, let me talk about the original model. This is the Heavy Arms Custom Kai model that was released, I forget the exact year, late 90s, 97, 96 if I remember correctly, in conjunction with the American release of Endless Waltz. I'm going to be blunt and honest, this is one of the earlier Gundam models I ever built, and it shows. You can see I didn't clean off the nubs, didn't do a particularly good job of preparing it for building. Everything is literally just stuck together, pressure tension, nothing more. Stuff doesn't really line up properly. No panel lining, no matte finish. Yeah, no stickers. I still hate doing stickers. They are just a pain. But, you know, I'm not going to try and disguise what I did with the model. It is what it is. One of my earlier models, you know, we all start out and we all grow and learn. And, you know, that's really the reason why I do these videos and I run my entire blog. It is meant as a learning and demonstration experience. I try new things, I invite feedback, and to provide inspiration for others. So, now that we've seen what I did 17 years ago, let's take a closer look at what I did more recently. I didn't have an exact idea of what I wanted to do with this project. I just knew I wanted to convert the Heavy Arms Kai model into something closer to anime inspired. But at the same time, I didn't want to lock myself into being totally cartoonish. Which, yes, I say that about a giant robot with machine guns and missile pods all over it. So, obviously the first big thing I had to do was painting. This was my first time using Tamiya brand acrylic paints. They are a different animal from the Citadel I've used previously. They go on much smoother and for the most part come out with a gloss finish. So the matte finish was definitely needed on this. Something else I had to do was I had to modify the shoulders. Let me take the right one off real quick so I can move that without moving around the entire body. So like as an example, on the original model, the back panel rotates out, the upper panel flips open, and you've just got this great big old wall of micro missiles. Well, the anime version did not have that many missiles. It certainly had a lot, far more than any of the other Gundams in the series. But it was not just this walking wall of munitions. So that was actually my first thing. I had to decrease the amount of missiles in it, which I did first by gluing shut the back panel and basically making that look like it's a solid panel, and then not installing the missiles in the top panel. So now if you look at the anime version of Heavy Arms, it's got missile pods along the top of his shoulder as well, which I had to create. I basically did that by building a housing in sheet styrene, or plot plate if you prefer that term, and then mounting a missile tip from one of the panels that I didn't use. I didn't think about when I was building it, in hindsight, what I really should have done, instead of keeping the hinge on the top like this, what I really should have done is modified it so that it opened more like this. Something a little bit closer to what the anime version did. Because just as it is right now, it just barely clears that top missile, and it's pretty easy to imagine firing the missile off and then taking the top panel with it. And the next big thing I had to do was the chest. For anyone who's a fan of the Heavy Arms, you know that its custom Kai version has 4 smaller caliber miniguns, while the anime version has 2 larger ones. What I did for this was I took the tips from the Gatling cannons, cut them down and mounted them in the chest, and then built additional components out of claw plate and plastic tubing to fill in the space and make it look like he's actually got some mechanics in there. Okay. So here's one of the hiccups: is this joint wants to be very loose. So I had to deal with that. You can't see it on the video, but what I actually did is I mounted magnets inside of the inner edge of the panel, so that when it closes, the magnets actually hold it shut. So I admit that was a bit of a cheat, but it works. See? The other big modification I had to do was to the left arm. Now, originally I built this with a full hand. So the idea was I could pull the arm out, put a hand in there, and voila, I've got, Heavy Arms with his full arm. The only problem was I lost the hand. So, but anyway, I can still talk about what I did for the machine cannon. Number 1, I reduced it from a double barrel to a single barrel, putting a piece of claw plate in there to cover the hole. Then I built the armature housing out of claw plate. In order to help it mount on the arm properly, I used a bit of a ball joint from an extra hand that I had in my bits box and mounted it down in the bottom. I'm trying to get you a good angle on there. It's kind of hard with the lighting the way it is. So, but basically, that lines right up with the wrist. So I can stick this in there, press a little bit, hear a nice click, and voila, the arm does not come off. See? So it's on there good and tight. It creates some challenges for posing. But such are the joys of Gunpla. Another modification I did was the hip pads that have yet more missiles in the original model. I glued them shut because the anime version of the Heavy Arms does not have those. Again, I had to cut down on the weapons. Yes, I'm saying that about the stereotypically American Gundam. So, now if you remember, the anime version also only had 1 set of missile pods, while the Endless Waltz version had 2. So had to fill in the space for the missing missile pods on the legs. There's a lot of modeling putty, some filing, more modeling putty, more filing, painting, finding out the paint wasn't right, or finding out the putty wasn't right, sanding it down again, adding more putty, and finally getting at least a halfway decent finish. As you can see here, you have to really kind of look hard to find any seams in there, so okay, success overall. One other thing that I did with the model itself was I put weights in the feet, so that way the model, can actually stand up a little bit easier. So you see, like, even that's a bit top heavy for it. So, but as you can see the way the legs droop down, it's because I got about, I want to say 2 ounces per foot of fishing weights in there. Nothing really fancy. Filled the sections with the weights, shaved it down, made sure they still fit, and then glued it all together, and then went to painting them. Now, I'm sure you guys have noticed something on the back of the right arm. In the anime version, the Heavy Arms had a deployable combat knife. it literally just mounted at the inside of the wrist and swung out, and voila. You know, when the heavy arms runs out of ammo, it's still got a knife to use. I wanted to do something along that line, but I didn't want to have this big, you know, katana-style swing blade the way the anime model did. So I wanted to go for something more of like a magnetic rail-guided or driven combat knife. And unfortunately, I went too literal with the size. I tried to go for a blade that would be the right size for heavy arms to hold, and thus that would be what would deploy from under the arm. Yeah, it came out a bit too small. But anyway, I still talk about it. The rails are just small L-channel brackets, while I made kind of a magnetic inducer by wrapping a bunch of wire around a central post and then mounting it between two smaller discs of styrene plastic, and then mounting all that under the arm. Overall, I like how the project turned out. If I were to do it a second time, I would most definitely learn from my mistakes. Some of those mistakes include matte varnishing the pieces too soon. As you can see, you got dusty effect in there. Where's the other one? Oh, and on the inside of the leg, the panel lining ran a bit. Also, obviously I would redesign this to make it a larger blade and actually be worth something in combat. And like I said, I would definitely redesign the shoulders so that instead of the panels opening like this, they would open like that. But again, this was primarily a fun project and experimentation, which, you know, I always encourage and I enjoy myself. So, and honestly, it was fun being able to look at what I did 17 years ago and what I did more recently with the same kit. It's a nice way to kind of see how my skills have grown and feel better about a lot of the projects I've done. So, and like I said, in the end, that is the entire purpose of the Resurrected Hobbyist, learning new techniques and talking about them. So on that, I'm going to close out the video. This is Michael from the Resurrected Hobbyist saying, keep experimenting and learning, and always be safe.